Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and this is another video in the series on Derbyshire churches. It's been doing that for quite some while, of course, because there's a lot of churches in Derbyshire. Derbyshire is next to North Staffordshire, more or less. This is the Church of the Holy Trinity, Tansley, just outside Matlock. And this is a good example of the kind of churches that were built in the first half of the 19th century, second quarter we might say, so it's about 1840 this is built. Matlock at the time is growing in popularity, particularly as a spa and as a location for hydropathic hospitals, people going to take the waters as medical treatment. And there's a connection with this church between this church and the hydropathic hospitals. There was a hydropathic hospital here in Tansley. This church is built because the village is growing, and there was a Methodist chapel. There still is a Methodist chapel in the village, but the Anglicans, of course, said, well, why should it just be us? Why should it just be the Methodists? And then we must provide somewhere as well. And because this is 1840s, it very much reflects the Protestant approach to the Church of England. It's an era when you have a very evangelical curate over at Cromford, rather, where you have quite a lot of evangelical preaching around here. Lots of Methodists, but also evangelical Anglicans. So have a look around and point out some of the salient features of this building and how it reflects the period in which it is built. Now, one of the most obvious features here is that there is really nothing in the way of a chancel. There's a tiny little kind of alcove with what looks like a blocked window in the back. It's not a blocked window. In fact, there never was a window there. Originally, you had the Ten Commandments, the Lord's Prayer, and the Creed there, but they've been boarded over. They are actually painted underneath. But there never was a window there. It's just an imitation of triple lancet, the sort of early English style, because this is very much this early English style. It's a relatively cheap form of Gothic. Now, thinking about the original building here, you must ignore the north aisle. The north aisle is a later addition, and it's added because of a hydropathic hospital locally, and the hospital needs somewhere for the patients. So this aisle is built so that patients from the hydropathic hospital can have an aisle to themselves on Sundays, and that also is why it's no longer got pews in it, because the hospital's closed. So here we are at the West End. Here we have, I'm not sure, is that the original font? It could be at the back. It's hard to tell because it's got something on top of it now. We have a series of pictures of former rectors. Originally you have, the first one is Joseph Webb back in 1840 to 1841, then 1841 to 43, Reverend A. Orme, 43 to 46, H.A. Smith. And just getting the place established, it's obviously a series of very, very short incumbencies before you get, later on you've got Reverend Brodie Mace, rector, 1889 to 1941. So he's incredibly long-serving, and obviously sets an awful lot for the 1941, yes, and sets the tone really. And then George Caldwell, just 10 years, and you can see some of these men. Well, Paul Miller, there, he's looks quite Anglo-Catholic, doesn't he? But I'm not sure this ever had I'm pretty sure it never had a sort of Anglo-Catholic tradition, because the church doesn't look like it. These, of course, are not the original pews. These are later Victorian ones. The original pews would have been much more the sort of box type. We have here dedicated the memory of Hannah Horden Mace, who died 1937, and the Reverend John Brodie Stewart Mace, rector of this parish, 1890 to 41, by their son Stewart Petrie Brodie Mace. So, of course, you've got the war memorials. You've got the larger stone marble for 1914, 1919. You notice that, of course, is to do with the end of the war actually being in 1919. That's when the Treaty of Versailles is signed, and 1930, 1945, smaller for the Second World War. The arrangement here, of course, is not original. Originally, there would have been a taller pulpit, perhaps to one side, perhaps on the side where you've got the window there, perhaps on the other side, but it would have been taller pulpit. You've still got the original reading desk over there. That's because the lectern is a later addition, but a reading desk is 1840s original, and you've got your two seats there. This is really the three-decker pulpit's had its day, and you've now got the separate pulpit, separate reading desk and pulpit, although again that pulpit is much later. We've got a very small font there. That font is interesting because this font was originally in the church that is now underneath a reservoir. This font came from St James, Derwent, which is now submerged beneath the Lady Bower Reservoir. It was given by Henry Bacon in 1978. Sorry, not 1978, 1972 even. Sorry, 1672 originally. It's placed in this church in 1978. That's what I'm confusing. So Henry Bacon, not Bacon, it's Bowley. And you've got here the date 1672. So this church, this font is not original to this church, and that suggests that what's at the back there is the original font. This aisle has been cleared of seating because there's no need for seating for the patients at the hospital. It doesn't exist anymore. And we have, looking west, we've got a nice big gallery. Originally that would have been largely a singer's gallery, musician's gallery, but also a bit of seating. Now, of course, it's the organ gallery. You've got this nice big organ. You can't get up there. Health and safety means it's locked when the church isn't open, or rather when there's no service in the church, it's kept locked, and fair enough. You do want to keep people safe. We have here, there's a photograph showing what is behind the boards in the little chancel east wall, and Ten Commandments, Creed and Lord's Prayer. This is a photograph of the church as it was in the 19th century, late 19th, early 20th century, and you can see very much as it is now, but again with those painted boards at the east end, and with pews in the aisle, which of course no longer has any pews in it because it doesn't need any pews in it. And the aisle, of course this is 19th century, there's never been a side chapel here. It's all about provision for seating, it's all about space for people to come, and here you can see there's no columns originally. It's a big open preaching hall, and that is very much this first half of the 19th century. It's still very much a Protestant Church of England. Here there's a slight difference here in terms of the style, but it's quite well done. And of course, modern provisions, you've got a little kitchenette area, and you've got your toilets at the back. And again, the iron columns, cast iron columns, that support the gallery, and the gallery has the royal arms on it, which this is quite normal. We'll have a little bit of a closer look at the royal arms. It's sometimes interesting to see. There are some things that you can tell about the royal arms. Traditionally, both the supporters are male, and here we're quite restrained here. We haven't got the well, there's actually a certain amount of, yes, they are definitely male, aren't they? Because that's what they are. They're supposed to be. And of course, the masculinity is a declaration about the virility and the might of the king and the empire or the kingdom. So that's inside here at Tansley. We'll pause now. Oh, there we are. That's the door, and that's originally it would have been painted, and you can see it's actually fairly low quality pine. So we'll go outside and have a look around and just see the outside of this little building. So now we're outside here at Tansley. You can see behind me this lovely, solid church built of the local grey stone with its west tower. The tower also acts as a porch, which is quite common in these buildings, these 19th century, early 19th century buildings, because you've got to have the porch somewhere, and why not just have it in the tower? You haven't got a full ring of bells up there, you've just got a bus to go past. You just have a little ding-dong bell to summon the people to worship. You've got a clock, and yes, that is the time. And well, that's pretty much all you have, and very typical of the period. So we'll have a quick look around the outside, and then say some words in closing. You will notice the yew trees. That's quite common. It's actually traditional to plant yew trees around churches. The reasons for it have long since vanished into history, but when this was built, but the tradition carried on. And you can see this very, very, very nice little pointy windows, some original cast iron tracery, tiny little tower. You've got St George's flag flying, St George for England. Carry on. There's a nice little graveyard, sheltered graveyard around here. There's the stairs down to the boiler house in the basement, which once again I am compelled to say is not a theological statement, but it was very common, because obviously you want to have your heating, and if you've got underfloor type heating, why not put the heating directly under the floor? Little bit of school up there. It's very, very common to find a school next door to the church, because education was provided initially by the church. And you can see here now why there's no east window, because the vestry is directly outside. There's no evidence ever of there having even been an east window, because there never was. And in fact, I think that's a chimney up there. Yes, that's probably a chimney for the vestry fire, you see. So there's going to be a chimney breast in there. So very, very interesting. And of course the east end faces away from the village. It doesn't need to look quite so posh. As the old Welsh rhyme puts it, the Methodists have built a church. The front looks like an abbey, but thinking they can fool the Lord, they made the back part shabby. Well, it wasn't just the Methodists who built churches like that. And this could be the back of a Methodist chapel. It's not, but it could be. There we have it. Apologise for this solar glare. Obviously that's to do just with the sun. The sun, it is where it is at this time of day. It is about 3 o'clock on an early March day. Past one of the yew trees. You see, you've got all these graves down here. Here's Cecil Ernest Samuel Slowcock, son of the Reverend Samuel Slowcock, M.A., aged 40 years. Thy will be done. Here's this aisle we mentioned, and you can see it's a different style of windows. You've got these triple lancets. You've got this fancy arrangement. It's a bit later in the 19th century, being a bit more definite about Gothic architecture, so we don't want to just have this kind of bit of pointed and that's that. It's no longer the way things were when the church is first built in the 1840s. So there we are. You've got your little side door there. That of course was it's now the toilet. That was a separate entrance for the aisle for the patients at the hydropathic hospital. So that's pretty much the outside here, just making sure we don't get too much of the sun in. This lovely tower against the blue sky. I mean, such a gloriously English sight, particularly with St George's flag flying up there. And of course this is simply a statement about this England, not a statement about sports or anything. So that's the outside here at Tansley. So we'll just say a few words then in closing. So Holy Trinity, Tansley. There's a lot of people who are quite sniffy about these early 19th century churches It's not real Gothic, etc. Well, neither is later Victorian Gothic real Gothic. This is one version of Gothic. This is one version of this architecture. And these buildings are fitted and suited to a particular type of worship, which is the Protestant worship of the prayer book. They're not designed to imitate Roman Catholic buildings or medieval Catholic buildings. They're designed for what's supposed to be going on inside them. Whereas later Gothic Revival Anglo-Catholic buildings are often designed for these over-the-top recreations of medieval ritual. But this is designed it's a simple building for a simple village, and it's designed to do what it does. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, I enjoyed making them, and I do love this little one. This little church is just such a pretty example of the 1840s. Well, thank you for watching again, and may God bless you and keep you until the next time. Tractor. That's a tractor. Well, yes. This is rural. Well, God bless you and keep you until the next time. Thank you.